Hello.
Hey, hello. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Thank you so much for having us. And Jennifer, thank you so much for, making this happen. We've been,
If you can wait just a minute,
Oh.
our chairwoman just come in and we can start the meeting. I'm sorry. We do the introductions. Thank you.
Thank you.
You can go ahead and introduce yourself. Thank you.
Thank you so much. My name is Jared Silverman, and I'm part of an organization that's based in Bozeman, Montana called Hatch. And we've been around since 2004 and with a mission of hatching a better world. So, for 17 years, we've been hosting summits in Montana, mostly in the Big Sky and then Paradise Valley area, where we spend thousands of hours curating out of the box thinkers and innovators and creatives from different industries. And we bring them together to work on solving some of the world's most pressing problems, whether they're environmental problems or social problems, and sometimes even business problems. But we are really interested in partnering with the council on one of our initiatives. And just to give you a little background, I have a colleague with me, John Holm, from Pixera Global, which is a global organization. He can tell you a little bit more about it in just a minute. But we met on one of the Hatch initiatives, which was called the Ocean Plastics Leadership Summit. And we were working on solving the ocean plastic issue. And so we took C-level executives from all the major corporations that were producing plastics and also NGOs like Greenpeace, World Wildlife Fund, all on a ship out into the middle of the ocean to come up with solutions to the ocean plastics issue. And I met John there, and Pixera Global, they're really experts in circular economy and the future of circular. And so we've partnered up on some projects, and I'd like to hand it over to John to explain a little bit more about Pixera.
Hi, everyone. And thank you, Jared, for the introduction. And if you don't mind, would it be okay? Do I have permission to share my screen to share some slides to go over with you? Fantastic. So first and foremost, my name is John Holm. While I work and live in Washington, D.C., I'm a graduate from the University of Montana. My family is 4 generations Montanan. And so this project, as all roads lead to Montana, are a little bit personal. So it's a pleasure to meet you, and bear with me 1 second while I get my deck up. Thank you, Jared, for the introduction. What I'm going to go through today with you folks is just kind of a placeholder of the project and why we view and really want to view with a partner with you folks on what we view to be a crucial project, not only for you folks in the community, but for the state and actually for the world. So what I'm going to do is kind of frame a little bit what the circular economy is. I'm going to frame a little bit, get more context of what the space of plastic is looking like. And then we're going to dive into what the project is looking like and what we're looking for in a partnership. So without further ado, let me just jump right in. I think the first thing that I want to frame for you before we really get into the brass tacks of the project itself is go 100,000 feet up a little bit for a second. to share a little bit of what's happening in the world, which I'm sure you're seeing and feeling every day, but just to see the context of which we're devising and looking at this scope of work that we're doing. At the moment, what we see is social issues are not on a silo. They don't happen in a vacuum. They are all interconnected with one another. And at the moment, the Earth is undergoing a really rapid transformation into not having enough goods, enough materials, enough resources to sustain the planet. Populations are rising. The wealth and skills gap is increasing, and climate change is here. What I mean specifically by that is that we're seeing right now, if we see a 1.5 degrees Celsius increase in the climate, which is all prognostications are coming within the next 20 years, it's going to significantly impact how we farm, how we manage our land, how we manage our food. We're also going to have an influx of climate refugees from around the world who are living on ocean-based areas where sea levels will rise and affect those folks. At the same time, I want to pivot to the United States. There's all this discussion about an increasing wealth and skills inequality gap. We know that the United States leads all G7 economies or developing country economies in income inequality. And of course, those are usually by the most historically marginalized leading the pack, whether that is tribal, Black, or Latinx. To further that comment, what we see already in the United States is that 81% of financial managers are white. To further make a point on that, only 1% of venture capital funding goes to Black and Latinx, and that doesn't even include startup money going to tribal. I say that because change has to happen, but change cannot just happen in one area of access to health or access to job. It has to be systemic. And so when you look at systemic change and look at what we're trying to create, think in those lenses when I go through to some of the outcomes that we're going to lay out today. I'm showing you this for a second to give a flavor because plastic is going to be a big part of this conversation. What you see here, and this is from Forbes, is the plastic production per annum from some of the largest companies in the world. Those numbers don't lie. What you may not know is how much plastic is infiltrating our lives and will continue infiltrating our lives in the near future. By 2050, all projections show that there'll be more volume of plastic in the ocean than fish. What we're seeing right now is a tripling of plastic production globally because there's no laws or mandates, especially in the countries like the United States, and that it is spreading or leaking through the environment. When you look at this here, and you can actually have this deck if you want it later, I think it's really important, is when we look at plastic, there's a lot of talk in the space about how it affects oceans. And while that's really true, 45% of all plastic, though, comes from rural communities. It comes from communities that are not engaged with any recycling infrastructure. It actually comes and harms those community members that are the least integrated into what I would say the capitalistic take, make, wake economic capitalism model. And so what does that mean? So why are we here? When you take all of this, what we look at with Hatch, with our partner, who really focuses again on similar DNA that we do, is convening large-scale systems change, but representing the voices of those historically marginalized that actually should be the leaders of the transition of regenerative businesses and regenerative practices. And so when we came together on that boat trip, we said to ourselves, let's just do something really bold. Let's take a roadmap and focus on those organizations that can come together and bring the best of one another out, that really believe in science, that they believe in technology, but they also understand the key elements of local civil society and how to raise economic value up in the most marginalized. And so you see a group of organizations here, Hatch, you see SAP, which you may have heard of as a technology. They're our tech convener with technology, but also a group called Metabolic out of Amsterdam, which works with a lot of cities around putting policy in play for what we call inclusive circular economy practices like Amsterdam, Rotterdam, but also with Cleveland and Cambridge with us as a partner. And First Mile, which works in disparate communities like Haiti, like Nigeria, like Guyana, but also in Alaska, which we're working on jointly with this, of sourcing plastic in places where it's not, and assessing local environments to say how we can turn this material into product. So when you see this background, we have a couple of opportunities. And what we want to do here is identify and work with you folks. When you look at Montana and Alaska, which are two tied together, two geographies we're focusing on for this project, and I want to focus morely on Montana, is that there's a huge opportunity in Montana. There's an opportunity in Montana around taking a leadership position of taking this waste and turning it into economic value to material to actually sell, to make money from, or to better yet, lead the new regenerative mindsets, to practice regenerative farming and agriculture, which many of you folks may already do, which I know you do, and try to bring that to scale and take ownership of that new economic transition and be the leaders of that transition. So what this scope is designed to do is to work in partnership with you, to be stewards of your voices. When we look at the state of Montana, but really focusing first on the assessment area in your communities around the Flathead region of what the current state of plastic is like. And so what I mean by this is that when we have our zero waste community approach, what we do is we focus on 4 steps. We convene and assess. So the first step is we go, who are the players abroad on the ground that actually want to take ownership of this project? We don't just come in with money and represent our private sector interests and say, here you go, here's some cash, here's some recycling centers. We actually work and understand your needs, understand what you want, and then we design business plans and scopes based on what you're saying you want and go get funding for those. So the first step is convening and assessing the local environment to identify what is the state of waste? What is the state of plastic? What are the interventions that your community wants? Then we design those interventions with you, we co-create them, and then we put them in the implementation phase. And then if they really work, we adapt and replicate them. But actually, we want you to adapt and replicate them because they're your interventions. So when you look at this approach, I think there's a couple of hallmarks of our zero waste community approach. And by the way, we're doing this not only in Montana and not only with tribal in Alaska, we're doing it with waste pickers in Ghana. We're potentially doing it with the Black community in Chicago and Louisiana as well. And when we say community-centric at SAIL, I have to reiterate this. We selected you. We believe that you are the ones that really have the voice of change. You're the communities that we want to focus on. So when we say community-centric, it's your voice that we want to bring to the table and be stewards of. We look at plastic. When I showed you all those lists of plastic, we look at plastic right now as the gateway drug. Everyone in the world goes, we need to do something about our plastic problem. But plastic is an inroad into actual real recycling infrastructure that actually has value that works for all materials. So when you look at plastic here, plastic is the start of a conversation for a transition to a regenerative and circular economy. Last but not least, we want to be innovative. We want to look at this and say, here's an opportunity for folks right now to look at getting funding to invest in new material, ideas, thoughts of anything around a circular economy space, maybe not related just to plastic or waste, and bring those to table to get funding for those, and then take those out and scale those for yourself, for your own ownership. So those are the 3 caveats of where we build the foundations. So when we looked at Montana, and when we went out, people were like, why Montana? And there's a couple of reasons. One, it's the rural aspect, but 2, because there's a lot of innovation there. And also with Tribe, there's a lot of innovation that really nobody hears about. What we see right now is that waste and waste management in Montana, and this is true for globally, but it lives in a vacuum. Waste management recycling for 40 years really has not worked the way it needs to. The reason why is there's not been really any incentives from the government to make recycling mandated. That is starting to change. For example, the state of Maine just put in EPR legislation, which really it really mandates that the companies making the packaging have to pay for the recycling. Oregon, Massachusetts are going to start doing this now, and the European Union has already put this in for the whole European Union. So what we see as a wonderful opportunity is coming. So our hypothesis here is that we see, well, waste is not just waste, it's a treasure, but also waste management also has deep social and economic issues that we want to help frame. So when we look at waste, it's not just recycling content, it's identifying on the ground, what is the education of those folks on the ground around waste? What do you view education to be? What makes sense? What are the social issues that are affecting or can be affected by waste? We've worked in some communities where we've seen, for example, that in some tribes up in close to Nome, they have housing issues. They have 20 to 25 folks living in a hut. Well, how do we look at plastic waste being a solution for those social problems? How do we look at waste being a solution for those social problems and being really an owner of that waste flow? So at the end, what we want to do is assess to see what waste issues are on the ground, what they look like. What does a well-managed system look like for your region? And then at the end, with our partners, bring that waste management to build a truly workable and usable system on behalf of you, for you. So the goal of this assessment and why we're at the table right now, I just gave you the high vision. I want to get a little bit to the details. Is that all we want to do at this stage is understand what waste management looks like in your community. We want to come in and we want to assess what plastic looks like, or waste streams look like. Take the pulse from your community stakeholders of what waste means to you. What does the circular economy potentially mean to you? What does regenerative business mean to you? And what are the opportunities that we can find in your region and maybe the whole western region of Montana for collection, recycling, upcycling, and actually turning this waste into a valuable economic resource. If this hypothesis holds true, which we think it will, after the assessment is done and we've assessed the landscape, we then want to work with you, i.e. shepherd or steward your vision to develop these interventions on your behalf to then go get funding for them in the global marketplace. What we can say is that the global marketplace, there's a lot of money for interventions like these right now. This is a new thing. Because of what I showed you earlier with that slide, if we have to start solving this plastic problem, and a lot of folks are putting cash at the table to try to solve it. What we see with you folks is not just recycling. We see a culture built on regeneration, and we see a bigger opportunity to leap ahead even further than just dealing with the waste resources. So our vision, if it's correct, we would work with you folks to identify those interventions or solutions that you want, and then we would go on your behalf, help you go to market to go get those fundings to implement those interventions, with us then being there as a resource for you, but you taking ownership of that. What can this assessment yield? What are some of those interventions look like? Just to paint a picture for you, what we see, for example, in Alaska and what we see for in Ghana is we see what we call reverse logistic hubs, where waste can come into one hub. It can be converted there into material that can be used for, let's say in Alaska's case, the state of Alaska, for Ghana, the country of Ghana, maybe for Montana, the state of Ghana. I mean, for the state of Montana, we have to see. Advanced recycling operations can come in. We could do lake debris cleanups or reserve cleanups to come in and just clean. We can do community education campaigns, camps. We could potentially do education startups. We could maybe run incubators potentially of taking this waste on your reservation and turning it into product and get funding to actually put that together. We can strengthen backhaul operations. So for those folks where waste is hard to get out of, you can work at trying to figure out how we bridge that divide when there's no roads to get it. Or we can look at really that transformation of plastic into other materials. So that's what this assessment possibly could yield. There could be more. It depends on you. It depends on what the local culture is and what you want out of it. So Jared, I hand it over to you.
Thanks, John. Well said. Thank you. So I want to talk just a little bit about, our ethos, and, regardless of the interventions that we all co-create together, if you're interested, you would own and manage any of the projects that come out of the process. And we would just be, stewards to, help guide the process along the way, but we wouldn't necessarily have any kind of, financial stake in it other than helping bring in resources. Next slide, John. So our ask is really that, we would love the opportunity to apply our systems level lens to the waste management in Western Montana, and specifically focusing on the Flathead Reservation as our main stakeholder. So essentially, we're looking for permission in collaboration with you to convene stakeholders on the reservation and off, just simply to assess the waste streams and waste management in the region. And as I mentioned earlier, Hatch, we have gatherings in Montana, and one of our favorite alumni is Heather Cahoon. And I think that you all know Heather Cahoon, and she really was encouraging us and has been a big supporter of this, and has been an amazing resource. And she introduced us to Chairwoman Fayant. It's been a while because this all started before the COVID pandemic. But this slide just shows some of our current stakeholders and people that we would really like to be involved. And we've had conversations with all of these people. And Mark Nelson, who's the solid waste manager in Lake County, who I found to be a really nice guy in the conversation. He's been helpful in giving us some great information and statistics, and he'd be really interested in participating in this as well. So yeah, like we would be really interested in your thoughts, and we'd be happy to answer any questions. So as far as next steps, we would love some connection to key contacts with the tribe to guide our assessment, linkages to key stakeholders on and off the reservation. You probably know people and resources that we don't. And then also planning for waste characterization study mid-September. Our team, John and I and some of our partners from Metabolic and First Mile, who really specialize in this stuff, would come to Western Montana, and we would love, if it's appropriate, to meet with some people from the council and maybe even have some introductions.
So thank you for your time. We really appreciate your giving us this platform to speak to you folks and have a conversation. And now we turn it over to you for any questions that you might have. And again, we can also, if you're interested, share this deck with you as well afterwards if you want to have a review of it and maybe set up a follow-up call at your discretion.
Well, thank you for the presentation. I think I speak on behalf of the council when we say that climate change and reducing our carbon footprint is one of our priorities. In the previous administration, when the United States pulled out of the Paris Accord, one of the regional tribal groups that we belong to, the Affiliated Tribes of Northwest Indians, they asked that the tribes that were at their conference join the initiative called We Are Still In. And so we did that. We joined other municipalities and agencies in joining that. Additionally, the National Congress of American Indians, of which we are a member tribe, they have a specific climate change task force, and we're looking at, I guess, best practices. And so, I think the things you're talking about, involving waste management infrastructure, we couldn't go wrong with that. Any kind of infrastructure, we can't go wrong with that if the tribe were to look at that. I'm very interested. In a previous life, I worked at Kicking Horse Job Corps, as did Martin and Bing. And one of the big initiatives we started through Job Corps was a Go Green initiative. And we talked about, it started on Earth Day in 2010, I believe. And we had this whole campaign that every day was Earth Day. And the students, we just organized a Go Green Fair, but the students took it on from there. And one of the projects they did was a recycling challenge. And so it was between the medical trade and the business trade. So they recycled for a month, paper, plastic, aluminum, oil, because we not only had, kitchen oil, but we had diesel, oil, all of that stuff. And that took off like fire. It ended up the dorms competing against each other. And we actually institutionalized that whole recycling initiative. We started a Go Green committee. The students that were involved were in leadership positions, which meant they had some minimal compensation for it, but they became the recycling police. The money that they raised from recycling, they bought recycling bins, and they just for every, it ended up being every building on campus. and they kind of became the recycling police. If someone put trash in a recycling bin, they were actually given a minor write-up for it.
Wow.
And then that was about the time that the ARA money came out. And we established a greenhouse. We bought an electric vehicle. We had to build storage sheds to store our recycling because there was so much, having 224 students and about 70 staff on campus every day. One thing that came out of that was we banned styrofoam because we used to drink a lot of coffee. The students would drink a lot of coffee, and sometimes they'd have 5 cups a day, of styrofoam. So we had an expert come in and, calculate how much space we were taking up in the landfill from styrofoam. So, that's just some of the experience that I've had. And we worked very closely with Mark Nelson in that process. So, and I believe that the tribe actually banned styrofoam after that, when I think it was when Bing and I got on council, but I'm having Abby look into that right now as our resolution on that. But we know that, the city of Missoula to the south and the city of Whitefish to the north, they have very comprehensive climate change adaptation plans and best practices. So those are 2 potential partners, and in this time of, not only climate change, but we're in a pandemic. We have a lot of social injustice. We have a lack of biodiversity. This is one thing that we can do our part in and actually set the bar. So, comments from council? Sorry, that was a long commentary, but I'm just really excited.
Well, I mean, and I just want to jump in real quickly on your commentary, and thank you for sharing. I mean, again, 2010, getting out ahead of it and already doing it before everybody started kind of needing to get later, shows also the ingenuity and that you take it at heart and you're doing it. And I think that the community does it. This is a community effort. This is not done on a silo. And I think that's fantastic. And I think also I smiled because obviously I'm biased towards Missoula, having gone to school there, Missoula and Whitefish. And when you look at waste, the key thing is, how do you link and use climate potentially as a link around waste, because they're interconnected to one another. And a lot of the work that we're trying to do with our work is use renewable energy also to inform the recycling infrastructure too. So a lot of it sounds like it goes very well with what your strategy is and what your beliefs are.
The other thing that I forgot to mention was Mike Derglow, who's our climate change advisory committee chair. He had this idea of developing a youth group, and they're called Eagles. And not sure if I can get the acronym out there, but it's something like Ecological Advocates for Global and Local something sustainability.
That's really environment. That's really good.
They were started to look at recycling and what we can do to save the planet. And one of the groups in Arlee, they actually won the governor's award, I think 2 years in a row. And then I think this last year, the Polson group won the governor's award for that. One of the things the Arlee High School students did was like an energy audit in the school. And that was really exciting that our youth are grabbing onto this, because that's what we're turning over to them is,
Yes.
these kinds of problems, and they are just so creative. So we're really proud of our Eagles groups that do that. So I'm excited about it, but I don't know if any other council has comments. No. Okay, so what?
Sorry, it's a good idea.
Okay, go ahead, Anita.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I was just going to say, I really like the idea of joining together. I look at the beaches and the stuff on that you see even on Facebook, and oh my gosh, they're just full of all kinds of junk and plastic, and then on the TVs you look at what it's doing to the aquatic, the oceans and stuff like that, that it's killing the mammals and that. And yeah, I'd be very interested in seeing it be applied here on the reservation. I was going to say I was part of that when they banned the styrofoam cups, and everybody ended up with dishpan hands, but we started using regular cups, and we still do here too at council. So thank you.
I'm also really interested in the regenerative agriculture practices. That's something I've been trying to educate myself on. So Martin?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you guys for coming here. Yeah, I think we could definitely do more. That's one thing that I've been advocating for since I got on council, was re-implementing a recycling program, because we as an organization I don't think we recycle much as a actual organization. If people do it, it's on their own. I collect my own cans, and well, I drink a beverage every day here at lunchtime, and so I have cans, and they're just hanging up there, and I bring them across the street to the recycling center. And I've always wondered why we don't have recycling bins here, and I think I've requested that a couple times, but that was before COVID. So hopefully we can get this going again, and be stewards like we always say we are. So thank you.
Thank you, Martin. So I'm thinking of a few people that we could refer to you. One is Mary Rose Morjo. She's with our Environmental Protection Department, and she, I think, actually is in charge of the Eagles youth groups now, or she provides recycling trailers to them in communities. Also, Velda Shelby, she's our Economic Development Director. And then I'm wondering if we could get copies of your PowerPoint, because I'm really interested in that circular economy diagram, and having time to look at that.
And Shelley, on a side, I'd be more than happy to go through a little bit of a deeper dive at some point with you folks. Anybody wants to participate on what is the circular economy, especially around regenerative and regeneration, because I think there's a lot of wonderful tidbits there that really inform you and where you come from too. So I think it'd be great. So just let me know if you want that. We'll definitely give you these slides, but just put it out there. If you have appetite for more, I'm more than happy to provide an overview or a deeper overview.
Perfect. I think there are a few of us that would be really interested in that. So
Great.
thank you for the presentation today.
You're welcome. Thank you all for your time today.
And Chairwoman Fine, thank you so much. And would you be interested in having us come out and do the assessment sometime in September? Would that be okay?
Would there be a cost to us for that?
No, not at all.
It looks like we have some interest in that.
Okay.
So, yeah, if you can just coordinate with Jennifer Trahan, she can help set that up.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. And thank you all for your time. We really appreciate it.
Okay, thank you for your work in this area. Have a good day.
You too.
Thank you.
Okay, we are ahead of schedule, but it looks like we have Whisper and Shannon here to give us a bison range update. So go ahead.
Hasanakuke and everyone, Madam Chairwoman. I think that Shannon and I are probably the only ones on for the Bison Range update today. And we had one topic that we're looking to get some council action on. And I'm sorry that it did not make it to your packet. I was had extended it all the way till next Thursday. So I'm going to share my screen. And what we're going to talk about today is the Bison surplus recommendations for 2021 that I brought in last week. I should have at that time realized that I should have made that a regular presentation and then distilled it down for action. So that is what we've done. We went with the discussion that we had last week. We brought some ideas on what we would do with those bison. The options were to sell them, to surplus them, or to keep them, or to donate, to sell them, to donate, or to keep. And some of the options for keeping were maybe a year or more in the future, because there's a lot more planning that would probably have to go into finding other locations for those individual surplus bison to go. Donating was not looked at as highly as the option for selling. When we talk about selling, we're talking about live animals to other herds or to other producers in an effort to get the genetics moved around and used. We did talk about the food situation and what they could be used for. The animals that we're talking about right now are smaller. We're looking at 1 to 4 year olds. Did my screen not share?
Whisper, it was just really small, so I just took it over, so I apologize. I sent that to you in a message.
Sorry, I have a big screen. I shouldn't, yeah, okay, sorry. So the individuals that are surplused annually are generally smaller bodied animals. That is the direction that we're going right now. If at some point in the future we wanted to look at surplusing an older individual, that could be food, or as spoken about last time, to potentially create a production or food sovereignty herd where those individuals will go to a different location to be raised up to be more of a meat animal and be actually available to programs. So for 2021, we've come up with some different ideas for the number and for where they would go, their fate. There was no bison capture operation, which is what we call the event that was formerly called the Roundup. It is now the bison capture operation, a little less Wild West cowboy language for that. There was no removal in 2020 because of COVID. And so for this year, the idea is to run this younger individuals through to get genetic information on them, to tag them, and to reduce the herd by 35 to 40 individuals. We're looking at a medium high to high number based on the fact that we have a large number of elk on the range as well as bison, and they compete for the same food. We also are in a drought situation that we think has the potential to cause some food shortages for those animals. Traditionally, they have been managed in a way where they eat what is on the range and they are not supplemented with food. We will, of course, do that if the situation arises, but we want to be able to let the range grow enough forage for them to sustain themselves. Because there is an overabundance of elk there, we plan on doing a more concentrated removal of elk so that we can free that up to really focus on bison. And those animals would be available for food security or food programs as they are removed. So for the fate of the 2020 surplus, we brought forward a recommendation of donating 5 individuals. That would mean 5 individuals would go to other conservation herds or to the DOI metapopulation efforts, which is spreading around those genetics that are really have been cared for and preserved in this herd over time. And then to sell through live online auction, 30 to 40 individuals after the bison capture operation. We're reaching out to some people and working with IT to see if we can find a company that does livestock online auctions so that we can have that facilitated for us. We're not going to try to do that ourselves because it's not really in our wheelhouse. And so we'll work on getting that together. We, of course, have to keep those individuals, feed, water, keep them safe in the meantime. We'll try to get them processed out as quickly as possible should you choose to do this option. And then before next year's capture operation, to really look at the feasibility of creating that food sovereignty or production herd, see what groups are out there that have the capacity to try to help create that. And then also consider that elk and deer reservation wide need to have some population reduction as well, and that those would be available for food programs as well. I'll take any questions, and Shannon's here to answer as well.
Questions, comments? Well, I'm really excited to hear about the genetic conservation initiative, you know, going along with the Bison Conservation Initiative. I've had talks with Dr. Leroy Littlebear about the meta population efforts that they're doing. And of course, you know, I'm really interested in the cultural restoration aspect of it as far as developing our own herd and, you know, just what we know about bison as being the climate change fighters as far as restoring the land. So I'm really excited about their options that you've offered us. So thank you. Any other comments? So did you need action today on these options?
Yes, please. These are the one that we're bringing forward to see if you're willing to adopt that recommendation. And then we'll start moving forward on planning for that.
Madam Chair,
Go ahead, Martin.
I guess I would make the motion to accept the 21 bison surplus recommendations from NRD.
Okay, motion by Martin, second by Anita. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstain. Mike abstains. Motion carries. Thank you, Whisper.
You're welcome. And I don't know, I thought maybe Tom had an update on signs, but I haven't heard from him. And so I'm not sure.
Okay,
I don't have anything
Shannon,
else.
did you have anything to add?
Not that I'm aware of. I think Whisper covered it fairly well.
All right. Well, thank you for that.
Thank you.
You guys have a good day.
You too.
Okay, just to follow up on some of those items that we brought up this morning, Rick is going to send an email confirming the election judge increase in compensation. He also would follow up with, or have Pete follow up with the issue you brought up, Carol, about the house in St. Ignatius. He has had the same phone calls about the equipment, the fire equipment contractors. So he's trying to get a better grasp on what the best value contracting thing is. And so he'll get back to us on that. And I think that's it. Oh, the one thing we talked about during the staffing was to get a briefing from legal on the before the rescheduled meeting with the BIA solicitors on the MVP issue. So we'll look for that from legal before we proceed with that. So, Martin?
I just wanted to make sure that we got Whiskey Trail on the agenda next week. I thought we were gonna have a discussion this week about it, but next week would work.
Jen, can you make note of that? Okay. Okay, Ellie?
Thanks, Madam Chair. I'm sorry I didn't get this on the agenda request this morning, but I had mentioned previously that I was invited to present at the National Native American Law Enforcement Association's 28th Annual National Training Conference that's taking place August 24th in Las Vegas. And in trying to register as a presenter and talking with them, this is one of those things where the expense is on us for me to go do that. It would be a presentation, an hour and 15-minute presentation, but I would be registered as an attendee and be able to take part in the rest of the conference. NCMEC will be there. That's the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. There'll be workshops on human trafficking. There's a track that addresses child protection and mental health in Indian country. So the agenda looks really good and I think would be beneficial, but I would like council to weigh in on whether it's something you would support before I proceed.
Lynn?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I would support the request for Ellie to attend this event and represent us there. I think that would be beneficial, so.
Go ahead, Ellie.
And I guess I needed to add my presentation is on MMIP. I don't know if I said that.
I think we all kind of assumed that. You represent MMIP and this tribe and the state very well in that. So yeah, I'm glad that that's being recognized nationally. So thank you for that. I support that as well. So, okay, looks like we have good support for that. Is there anything else? Go ahead, Len.
Also, I just want to let council know that next week, there is a health conference in Billings, sponsored by the Rocky Mountain Tribal Leaders. They invited they invited me to go over. I'm unable to attend, so if anybody from council would like to attend that, let me know and I could submit your name and they can and they'll pay for the travel and expenses. So, and I could also forward that agenda for you also. It's a 2-day conference.
What were the dates again, Len?
It's a health
No,
conference.
the dates.
16th, 17th, and 18th.
Do you have the agenda?
I do. I could email it.
What does our quorum look like for that week, Jen? Okay.
Madam Chair, I'd love to go, being that I sit on the board, but I've got a couple appointments this month that I can't miss. So if someone else is interested.
Let's check our quorum situation first. Jen's looking it up right now. Did you say you're big?
I'll be gone the morning of the 19th. I should be back by about however long it takes from Bozeman to here. So by noon at the latest.
Madam Chair,
Go ahead, Ellie.
for quorum issues, I am also not here on the 12th. It's the state MIP task force meeting in Billings.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair, I believe the 12th is one of my appointments. Yeah, I got a hold of Jen.
Carol?
Yeah, I did just send you a notice on Turquoise Devereaux. Did you see that in your email?
On my email.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Ellie and Anita both mentioned about having her come and making a presentation here. So I had Turquoise write up a invoice and she sent it and I just forwarded it to you because I think we should respond. If we decide not to, we'll just let her know. But if we want to have it, then we should select a date that she has sent that she's available, and there is a cost, so it's really up to council. But I didn't want to leave her hanging in case she had other appointments.
This is the presentation on historical trauma.
Yeah,
Okay, and it is August 12th.
she named a couple of dates there.
It says 12th, 17th, or 19th, preferable on the 12th. So if Ellie's gonna be gone the 12th, Martin gone the 19th, maybe the 17th would be best. Is everybody in agreement to do the presentation itself? I think that might be a good way to start off our work on the boarding school issue. Mhm. Mhm. Okay. Sharma? So do we have a consensus to bring in Turquoise on the 17th for that presentation? Yes, okay. Do you want to, go ahead, Sharma. We'll go out of regular into executive? As soon as we stop live stream, we can get